Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
When Aunt Lorraine accused me of stealing from her purse, I didn't even flinch. Not at first. I just sat there, fork still in my hand, mashed potatoes getting cold. I remember the way her lipstick bled into the cracks around her mouth when she smiled, all fake and smug like she was doing us a favor by even letting us in her house. But when she looked straight at me, not Ruby, not Dylan, and said the cash was missing, my blood went cold. My name's Dean. I was 17 that November. We lived in Ashford, Ohio, and the only thing more broke than the town was our family. That whole mess started when the paper mill shut down the Friday after Halloween. My dad, Russell, came home with his work boots on and a badge he didn't need anymore. He didn't say a word, just dropped it on the kitchen counter like it burned. My mom, Clara, held it together for about 3 hours before she broke down at the sink, tears dripping into the dishwater like she didn't want us to hear. A week later, we were sitting in Aunt Lorraine's dining room, pretending the roast beef wasn't dry and that we weren't all one missed paycheck away from collapse. Lorraine had married well, to a smug little man named Gordon, who poured red wine like we were a charity case. I counted 6 glasses before he stopped pretending. That's when I saw the purse. Lorraine's purse, big, stiff leather thing, half open on the hall table. I didn't touch it, didn't even look twice until later. But I remembered the envelope. White band, blue ink, Whitaker Savings, stuffed thick. She waited until dessert to bring it up. Someone, she said, putting her fork down like she was on a courtroom drama, has been into my cash. She said there should have been $360 left in the envelope. Claimed she counted $11.40 that morning, peeled off $7.80 for church, groceries, and God knows what else. Then she looked at me. Only me. I didn't take your money, I said. My voice didn't shake. I wasn't lying. She crossed her arms and raised one perfect eyebrow. Then where is it? Quick note. Before we get into it, drop your city or country in the comments. Let's see where everyone's listening from. All right, here's the story. Ruby started stammering. Dylan went pale. I saw it. A flick of his eyes toward the hallway, just a blink, but I caught it. Like he was checking to see if the purse was still there. Lorraine didn't notice. She was too busy sharpening her tone. 300 doesn't just walk off, Dean. I stood up. You tipped delivery, paid the cleaner, gave to the church. You said all that yourself. Maybe your math's the problem. That's when my mom grabbed my arm, hard. Dean, tell me the truth. I am. She stared at me like she was trying to see something that wasn't there. You've shamed us, she said, quiet and sharp. I froze. That was the first cut. Back home, I went straight to my room, tried to shake it off. But later that night, packing my bag for Monday, I found something that stopped me cold. A torn Whitaker bank band, the same kind from Lorraine's envelope, tucked behind Dylan's baseball cards in his sock drawer. I just stood there, holding it like it was radioactive. He walked in, saw it in my hand, and said one word. Don't. Not scared, just low, flat, final. That was enough. When Mom asked me again, I told her no. She didn't believe me, said I needed to get out until I could act like a son. Dad didn't say a word, just sat at the kitchen table, staring past me with a clenched jaw and dead eyes. I left before dawn, wrote a note to Ruby. I'm fine. Take care of them. And grabbed my backpack. I passed Dylan's door and thought about saying something. Thought about lighting the whole thing on fire with the truth. But I didn't. I was the big brother. And I guess deep down, that's what I thought it meant. To take the hit and keep walking. Maple Ridge smelled like wet sidewalk and old exhaust when I stepped off the bus. It was just after 4 a.m, and the heater on that Greyhound had died halfway through Trumbull County. My breath fogged in front of me, and my hands were cracked from cold and stress. I had $86, a cracked phone, and no one expecting me anywhere. I picked a street and walked. The first thing I noticed was a faint light glowing behind the window of a little brick storefront. Carter's Bread and Coffee, hand-painted in crooked white letters. Looked old. Honest. There was a flicker of movement inside, so I pulled the door open without thinking twice. Warm air hit me in the face like a blanket. An older man in a flour-dusted apron looked up from behind the counter. He paused, narrowed his eyes, and said, "You lost or hungry?" "Yeah," I said. I didn't know which one more. A woman from the back, silver hair, fast steps, walked out holding a tray. She looked at me, then at him. "Ray, give the kid a roll," she said. Then she turned to me and added, "Eat, then mop. We open in 2 hours." That was it. That was the job interview. They didn't ask where I came from, didn't ask what I'd done. I think they could see it on me. The kind of tired you don't get from just one bad night. I told them I could clean, lift, follow instructions, and I wasn't there to steal anything or cause drama. Mabel handed me a rag and pointed to a bucket. Ray muttered something about the front windows being a disgrace. By 6, I'd wiped down every surface and scrubbed the floor until my hands stung. Mabel slid another roll across the counter, this time with a paper cup of hot coffee. Ray nodded like that meant something, and I took the cup with both hands like it might disappear. They didn't offer a cot in the back or a ride to a shelter. What they gave me was better. A room above the shop, twin bed, old dresser, tiny shower with a curtain that didn't quite close, and a window that whined when you tried to open it. Rent came straight out of my paycheck, $40 a week. No lease, no questions, just don't bring trouble up there. Work started before dawn. I learned fast. How to shape dough without punching the air out. How to stack trays so they didn't tip. How to smile at customers without trying too hard. I liked the quiet before the bell rang, when the world was still asleep and it was just us, the ovens, and the radio in the back, playing old country songs that stuck in your head all day. Mabel taught me to refill the jam jars without making a mess. Ray showed me how to eyeball the heat of the oven by smell. I didn't say much, just nodded and did the job. That silence was a shield. Every hour I kept busy was an hour I didn't have to think about home. After 2 weeks, I went down to the post office and bought a P.O. box. I mailed Ruby a short note. No return address, just my box number and 3 lines. "I'm okay. Please don't write back. I just need it out." I didn't trust that anyone else in the house wouldn't read it. By the end of the first month, I could pull shots of espresso, fix the card reader when it glitched, and take inventory without being told. The regulars started to nod at me when they came in. One old guy tipped me a quarter every morning and said, "Steady hands, son." But peace didn't last long. Ray got a letter from the landlord. They wanted to bump the lease by 18%. No improvements, no repairs. Just a cold demand for more. I watched Ray read the letter at the counter. His fingers twitched at the edge of the paper, and his mouth tightened, but he didn't curse. He just sighed, folded it twice, and slid it under the register. Later that night, when he stepped outside for a smoke, I pulled the envelope out and checked the letterhead. Mercer Properties. That name hit me like a gut punch. Lorraine's last name, her husband's business. I didn't tell Ray, didn't tell Mabel, didn't say a damn word. But I circled the due date on the big calendar behind the counter in red, made it big enough for everyone to see. Customers started asking about it. "What's happening the 15th? You guys doing a promotion?" I just shrugged and said, "Could be something worth noticing." Word got around. Maple Ridge was like that. People paid attention when their morning coffee might be at risk. A week before the rent jump was supposed to hit, a local paper reporter came in asking questions. He ordered a cinnamon roll and took pictures of the shop, even asked Ray what he thought about the property group trying to squeeze him out. Ray didn't give her much, just wiped his hands on his apron and said, "We've been here longer than their spreadsheet." The article ran on a Thursday. Headline read, "Beloved Bakery Gets Burned by Big Landlord." There was a photo of Ray, mid-laugh, flower on his sleeve. That's when something shifted. Customers showed up early the next day and left $20 bills in the tip jar. One lady prepaid for 3 dozen scones we didn't even sell. A man in a suit told Ray he'd represent him for free if the lease went to court. I kept my mouth shut, but inside I was boiling. This was Lorraine's world. Power, pressure, pretending it's just business. She didn't even know I was here, but I was standing on her turf again. I wasn't leaving this time. Ray didn't talk much when he worked, just grunted, pointed, and kept moving like he was racing something I couldn't see. But every so often, I'd catch him watching me shape dough and say one line. "Lighter hands, Dean. You're not fighting it." Mabel was the one who explained the why. If you treat it rough, it dies on you, like anything alive. They were simple lessons, but they stuck. By the end of winter, I could prep the morning batch on my own. Ray would check the trays, tap a corner, and give a little nod like it passed some unspoken test. Mabel started trusting me to handle closing, which meant counting the register and making sure the kitchen didn't look like a crime scene. I got good at finding quiet rhythms. Scrub, sweep, slice, breathe. Ray handed me the keys to an old Corolla they kept for deliveries. It rattled like crazy, and the brakes needed a prayer every stop, but I drove it like it was made of gold. I knew which traffic lights took too long, which alleys stayed clear in the snow, and which storefronts tipped better when you showed up with warm muffins and a smile. At night, after the shop closed and the world went still, I sat in the back corner of Maple Ridge Community College's night class. Small business basics. The professor had a voice like dry cereal, but he made one thing clear. You can't run what you don't understand. That hit me hard. I didn't know what I wanted yet, but I knew I didn't want to stay small and scared. A girl at the hardware store asked once if I was starting a cleaning company. I was in there every other week buying scrapers, bleach, gloves, and paper towels. I said, something like that, and left it there. Truth was, I didn't know what to call what I was doing, but I knew the work mattered. Every other week, I mailed Ruby a plain envelope with $25 inside. Cash only. No return address. Just a note that said, "For snacks for Dylan." I never signed it. Didn't want questions. Didn't want Dylan to feel like I was watching. But I needed him to know someone out there still remembered what he liked. Dad's birthday came up. I walked around with a card in my back pocket all day. Kept checking it like maybe I'd changed my mind. "Happy birthday, Dad. Hope things are better. Dean." That's all it said. I never mailed it. Just tore it up and tossed it in the dumpster behind the bakery. One morning I came down early and caught Ray rubbing his right wrist, slow and quiet like he didn't want anyone to see. I asked, "You good?" He jerked a little and smiled tight. "Just stiff. Shaping's easier when you're 20. I watched the way he shook it out like he was mad at it for betraying him. Then he picked up the dough again and kept working. Like always. A guy in a nice blazer came in around mid-March. He had a big smile, a silver pen, and a voice that sounded like sales pitches in suits. Said he was from a development group interested in community footprints. I asked if that was code for condos. He laughed like we were buddies. "We're looking to help small businesses monetize their value. This location has potential. Corner lot, visible signage, high-volume foot traffic." Ray came out from the back, arms crossed, apron streaked with butter. He listened for about 15 seconds and said, "We're not selling." Then walked right past him and into the kitchen. Blazer guy blinked like he wasn't used to hearing no. I offered him a scone on the house. He didn't take it. A few weeks later, a reporter from the Maple Ridge Ledger stopped in. Said they were doing a follow-up on the landlord drama from earlier. She asked if she could photograph someone working dough. Ray waved toward me. "Kid's got good hands." I didn't like being in front of a camera, but I did it. She took a few shots, asked my name, then left. When the paper came out, my photo was right there. Hands covered in flour, sleeves rolled up, eyes squinting at the dough. The caption read, "Maple Ridge Grit." It embarrassed me. Ray framed it and put it behind the register. That article bought us a little time. Landlord backed off. Lease stayed steady for a while, but I didn't trust it to last. So I started tracking everything. Waste, inventory, hours, costs. Not fancy, just dates, tallies, notes on which muffins sold better on Tuesdays, and when to order more parchment. I kept the notebook under the register, marked it log, and updated it every day. Mabel saw me one night scribbling in it and said, "Look at our little accountant." Next morning, there was a second key on the counter. No note, no speech, just the key. I put it on my ring and didn't ask why. The rhythm of that life wasn't easy, but it was clean. Work hard, stay late, learn fast, sleep short, get up and do it again. And every night, when I climbed the stairs to that little room with the stuck window and the rattling heat, I didn't feel like I was hiding anymore. I felt like I was becoming something solid. Ray's cough started in December, short at first, like he was clearing flour dust from his throat. Then deeper, longer. Mabel would give him that side glance every time it hit, and he'd tug his coat tighter like layers could fix lungs. One morning, he leaned on the prep table a little longer than usual, hand braced on the edge while shaping rye. I offered to take over, and he waved me off, said, "My bones still remember how." Mabel didn't argue, but the worry in her face got louder every day. She started letting me handle the register more, watch the deliveries, take the calls. Then one night, when we were cleaning up, she handed me the key and said, "Close for us, Dean." She didn't explain, didn't make it a moment. But the second I felt that weight in my palm, I knew something was shifting. That key was more than a chore. It meant trust. It meant something was coming. A week later, they sat me down at the back table after close. Mabel made tea, strong, black, no sugar, and Ray folded his hands like he was praying or bracing for a hit. "We're tired," he said first. Not in a bad way, just ready. I stared at them. "You selling?" "No," Mabel said. "We're offering." They told me their kids were both in Arizona, one in finance, one in tech. No bakers, no early risers, no one to take the shop. They didn't want to sell to a chain, didn't want to close up and walk away either. Mabel smiled and said, "We want it to stay what it is, and we want that to be with you." I was 17, almost 18. No credit, no backup. Just calloused hands and a rhythm I'd built one pre-dawn at a time. "I don't have the money," I said flat. "We didn't ask that," she replied. Their offer was clear: seller financing, monthly payments, a fair price, no banks, no pressure. Just a line in the agreement that said the name Carter's stayed on the sign until I decided I'd earned the right to change it. I didn't say yes right away. That night, I barely slept. Just stared at the ceiling with the window rattling in the wind and my stomach twisting itself into knots. The lease was the real problem. Mercer Properties again. Lorraine's world. Rent renewal was coming up fast. I pulled the lease out of the drawer under the register and read every line. Then again until I could quote it in my sleep. There was one clause, one little paragraph buried near the end, that mentioned unreasonable increases exceeding market comparables. That word stuck with me. Unreasonable. I started calling around, checked rates for other small storefronts, collected what I needed. Then Brent Coulson showed up, ran Sunny Crust 2 towns over. He came in smiling like a man who thought he already owned the place, said he'd heard the shop might be transitioning soon, and wanted to talk partnership. He looked around, nose slightly wrinkled, like the place smelled wrong. Then he said, "The rags to rolls thing? It's cute, real human interest stuff, but running a bakery takes more than grit. You know your way around a spreadsheet?" I wiped my hands on my apron and said, "I know my way around 4 a.m. He laughed, but not in a kind way. "Sure, but eventually you'll want to scale, systematize, think national. Eventually, I'll want you to leave." He blinked. I didn't smile. He left without buying anything. I tossed his card straight into the trash. That week, Ray and I went to the Maple Ridge Zoning Board meeting. I wore a clean shirt, combed my hair, and stood in front of strangers with a paper in my hand. "I work at Carter's," I said. "I'm not the owner yet, but I hope to be. And I'd like to ask on record why Mercer Properties is increasing our rent when there's been no improvements, no repairs, no justification." Ray stood behind me the whole time, said nothing, but his presence made me stand straighter. The room was quiet for a second, then someone from the crowd said, "Good question." Heads started nodding. The recorder typed. The moment got documented. That night, when the kitchen was clean and the chairs were flipped, Mabel handed me a manila envelope. No label. Just grease smudges on the corners and a paperclip holding it shut. Inside were pages, handwritten recipes. Some had measurements crossed out and rewritten. Others had notes like, "Ray says add more salt," or "too dry in winter." They smelled faintly of vanilla and ink. She said, "If you take this place, you take us with it." My throat locked. I nodded, then finally managed, "Yes." My voice cracked. Theirs didn't. We closed the doors for 9 days straight, and I swear we worked harder in that stretch than we had in the previous 9 months. I didn't have a contractor, just a list, some grit, and Ray supervising with a coffee in hand and his wrist taped. We repainted everything, warm neutrals, not the old yellow that made the place feel like a waiting room. Put in better lights, replaced the warped display case with one that didn't fog up every time it got humid. I scraped every sticker off the cooler with a razor and a prayer. Ray gave his nod of approval on day 5. Mabel brought sandwiches and told me to eat with both hands so I didn't faint. I think that's the moment it really felt mine. The old Carter's Bread and Coffee script still curved along the wall above the register, and I kept it there on purpose. But the sign out front? That was new. Matte black, bold lettering, hearth and stone, clean, solid. Felt honest. We added a coffee bar, just 3 stools, nothing fancy. I partnered with a veteran-owned roaster down in Sparrow Falls who delivered beans every Thursday in a beat-up pickup that rattled louder than the Corolla ever did. I stocked bags near the register and added "support local" under the price tag. People liked that. The Ledger did a follow-up article. "Local kid steps up," it said. The photo was Ray handing me a wooden peel like he was passing on a sword. I didn't love the attention, but I clipped the article, stuck it in an envelope, and mailed it to the P.O. box I hoped Ruby still checked. Didn't add a note, just folded it neat and sealed it slow. We reopened on a Saturday. By noon, the shelves were empty. Gone. Every roll, every croissant, every loaf. I walked out to the sidewalk and apologized to the last 6 people in line, took down their names, and promised to box them extra for Sunday morning. They showed up with travel mugs and thank you cards like I'd cured something. By the next week, I had a routine. Early dough, late prep, run the books in between. Ray still came by some mornings just to lean on the counter and tell me the coffee was weaker than it used to be. Mabel popped in twice a week with a fresh batch of sarcasm and critique. I paid them every Friday, full amount, on time. We shook hands over every check. Never felt like a bill. Felt like respect. The first letter came the following Tuesday. Plain white envelope, handwriting I knew as well as my own. Ruby. She wrote that Dad was picking up odd jobs, fixing fences, clearing gutters, whatever he could. Mom was working double shifts at the pharmacy, trying to catch up on whatever debt they'd stacked. Dylan was quiet, moodier than usual, locking himself in his room most days. She didn't ask me to come back, just told me what was going on, like I needed to know. She added one last line. "Aunt Lorraine's been asking about you. Wants to know if you've turned into something respectable." I folded the letter slow and set it in the drawer with the logbook. Didn't even bother getting mad. That woman had a talent for poison disguised as curiosity. A banker came by in a wool coat and a beard so neat it looked fake. Said he'd read the Ledger piece and wanted to offer me a line of credit. Something to help expand, build security. He handed me a folder that looked like it came with strings. I read it, front to back. "Your rates are stacked," I said. "I'd be your tenant for the next 10 years. He gave me a tight smile. "That's one way to look at it." I gave him back the folder. "I can read. That's how I look at it." He didn't shake my hand on the way out. 2 weeks later, Brent from Sunny Crust made another move. Tried to poach my morning baker, Ashley. She was solid, punctual, fast hands, single mom with a kid in Little League. Brent offered her $2 more an hour and something about corporate benefits. She brought it to me straight. No games. I asked, "You want to go?" She shook her head. "I want to stay, but I also want to see my kid pitch on Tuesdays." Next morning, I gave her a raise and a new schedule that gave her afternoons off 3 days a week. She stayed. She even baked a sheet of cinnamon rolls with "Thanks, boss" written in icing. I made her throw the extra ones in the case and sell them like always. That was when I realized what I'd built had weight. The following Tuesday, phone rang. Number I hadn't seen in over a year. Local area code. Familiar first digits. "Dean?" Ruby's voice cracked like the phone line had rusted. I stood in the kitchen, holding a knife over a cooling tray, completely frozen. "Yeah," I said, barely. She let out a shaky breath. "I'm sorry. I didn't know if I should call. I've been holding off." I leaned against the counter. "No, it's okay. I'm glad you did." We talked 40 minutes. Not about the big things. Not yet. She told me about her new part-time job at the school office, how she was saving up to move out. I told her about the new roaster, how Ray still came in once a week pretending not to be proud. When she mentioned Mom, her voice dropped. Said she'd been tired lately, quieter, regretful. "She still cries sometimes," Ruby said. "When no one's looking. I know it's about you." I didn't say anything for a second. Then I said, "I regret stuff too." There was a pause. A beat of silence that meant more than words. We didn't mention Dylan's name. Not yet. We danced around it like it might bite. Maybe it still would. But that call, that voice, tied a rope back to the part of my life I'd left behind on purpose. And for the first time, I didn't hang up feeling like I was breaking something by answering. After Ruby called, I went down to the station, bought 2 bus tickets, and sent them in an envelope with her name on it. One for her, one for Dylan. No note. She wrote back 2 days later, just a torn scrap from one of those notepads you keep by the landline. Her handwriting was tighter than I remembered. "Send Dylan. Let them see him. They need to breathe." So I did. He got off the bus on a Thursday morning. Taller, sharper in the jaw, hands stuffed into the front pocket of his hoodie like he was trying to hide from the wind, or himself. I didn't say anything. Just nodded toward the bakery. We ate pizza on milk crates in the back room, a grease-stained box between us. He picked off the olives. I watched him more than the food. "Nice place," he said, eyes on the floor. "Thanks," I said, not pushing it. Later I showed him the kitchen, how to flour the bench so the dough didn't stick, how to score a loaf just deep enough to guide the rise. I sliced one open for him right out of the oven. The steam rolled up, hot and sweet. He just stared at the crumb for a second, like it meant something he didn't want to say out loud. Then he turned away and wiped his hands on his jeans. That night, he crashed on the couch upstairs, wrapped in an old quilt Mabel had left behind. Around midnight, I was half asleep when I heard the floor creak. He stood in the doorway, dark hoodie, socked feet, arms crossed. "I didn't say anything back then because I was scared," he said. Then he turned and shut the door behind him. I didn't follow. In the morning, I packed him a box of rolls and drove him back to the bus station. No music in the car, just the hum of tires and the sound of him breathing like he didn't want to. Right before he stepped out, he leaned in and hugged me. Quick. 2 pats on the back. The kind men give when they don't know how to hold more. "Thanks," he said. "For what?" I asked. He didn't answer. Just walked inside with his hood up. 1 week later, I was pulling trays when the doorbell chimed at 10:07 a.m., late for the usuals, early for the lunch crowd. She walked in like she owned the sidewalk. Cream coat, fresh blowout, fake concern stitched into a smile. "Lorraine." "Dean," she said like we were old friends. "Family should reconnect." I wiped my hands on a towel and leaned on the counter. "We open at 4. We close at 4. You won't find family therapy on the menu." She ordered a latte she didn't touch, poked at a blueberry scone with her spoon, and told me the past was all about perspective. I stared her down. Revisionist history doesn't go well with coffee. She blinked like she hadn't been told no in years. Took her purse and left, latte untouched. That night, Ruby called. Said Mom broke down in the kitchen when Dylan got home. Said Dad stood there with his hand on her shoulder. Didn't say much, just kept nodding. That was new. "He's been listening more," Ruby said. "Not talking, just listening." I didn't say anything at first. Then I said, "That's good." I didn't ask if they believed Dylan had taken the money. I didn't bring up the Whitaker band. Still had that moment frozen in my head. Sock drawer, baseball cards, his face when he saw me holding it. That single word, don't. I didn't need to hear an apology to know it was real. On Thursday, the health inspector showed up right after opening. Clipboard, bored expression, zero warning. I asked, "Complaint or routine?" "Anonymous," he said. Something about improper cooling procedures. I walked him through the kitchen, showed him our logs, our thermometers, our labeled trays. Mabel had drilled it into me back when I first scrubbed pans. Clean kitchens or quiet kitchens. He ate a scone, complimented the crust, and left us with a 97. Brent didn't say anything directly, but I saw his guy at the corner table the next day, pretending to scroll his phone while watching our staff work. I walked over and said, "We sell pastries, not secrets. If you're here for either, pay or leave." He left. I started setting aside cash every weekend, small amounts, folded tight and locked in the drawer. One town over, there was a spot. Vacant storefront, good bones, low foot traffic but a fair lease. Nothing fancy, but it could work. I started sketching numbers on the backs of receipts, then moved to a real ledger. At first it looked like a lifeline, survival. But the more I filled it in, the more it looked like a plan. Growth wasn't the goal. Breathing room was. That Sunday, Ruby called again. "Mom wants to see you," she said. "She's not asking. She just cries a lot." "I know," I said. "I just don't want to fold when I look her in the eye." "You won't." "You sure?" She was quiet for a second. Then, "I'm sure." I thought about telling her I'd found the Whitaker band in Dylan's drawer all those years ago. Thought about saying, "You know I took the fall, right?" But the words didn't come. Instead, I just said, "Tell her I'll come when I can." And I meant it. I didn't take a breath for almost a year after that card from Brent showed up. Hearth and Stone opened a second spot in Brookvale, then a third near the lake. One old storefront, one strip mall with bad parking. Both had working ovens and staff that knew what it meant to start early and end late. I rotated between them, taught the morning bakers how to cut corners without cutting quality. Insurance bills showed up thicker than payroll. So did receipts. It was a trade I could live with. I wrote up training sheets by hand, mixed times, shaping guides, what to do when the proof box ran hot. No fluff, just the bones. The goal was simple. Someone I'd never met could bake something solid in a town I'd only ever driven through. The rhythm changed. No more one-room shop, no more single fryer humming in the corner. Now I woke up to messages from 2 managers, a supplier's invoice, and a message from the county health office confirming an inspection. I still got my hands in the dough, but it was less and less. That part stung more than I expected. Somewhere in the middle of all that, I started a scholarship. Small at first. $1,000 from the holiday rush, sent through the high school guidance office. For kids who didn't want to chase degrees they couldn't afford, welding, culinary, HVAC, plumbing, didn't matter. If they wanted to build something, I wanted to help. I wrote the check with my name on the back and Clara B. on the front, my mother's maiden name. No press, no speech. Ruby called again that spring, said she thought Mom was ready to call me herself. I didn't say no. The phone rang on a Sunday afternoon while I was scraping a sheet pan. I let it ring once, twice, stared at the screen like it might bite. Then I answered. "Hey." "Dean," she said. Just that. Then silence. I leaned back against the counter. "Hi, Mom." She whispered. "I'm sorry," like the words had thorns. I didn't let the silence hang. "Still drinking Folgers like it's a cure-all?" That cracked her, laughed through tears. "Your father swears it keeps him alive." "Sounds about right." She asked if we could meet, somewhere neutral. She didn't say those words, but I heard them anyway. We picked the diner off Route 18. Bright lights, sticky menus, linoleum floors that hadn't been mopped right in 10 years. I showed up early, sat in a booth with my back to the wall. They came in together. Dad looked older, but not worn, like time had slowed him down instead of grinding him up. He shook my hand a little too hard, then pulled me into a hug that hit me sideways. Last time he did that, I was 12 and bleeding from a busted bike chain. Mom looked jumpy. Her eyes kept bouncing like she was waiting for me to bolt. I didn't. I asked how work was, if the roof still leaked over the laundry, if they were staying warm with the same rattling furnace. She blinked fast. "You remember all that?" "Course I do." Dad told me about his engine shop. Rented bay, steady work. Mostly lawnmowers and snowblowers. Said he had regulars. One guy even brought him banana bread once a month. "We're not great," he said, "but we're better." No one mentioned Lorraine. No one mentioned money. We talked about Ruby's job at the school office, how she kept a drawer full of Band-Aids and spare pencils for kids who forgot things. We talked about Dylan apprenticing with a contractor who didn't scream and paid overtime. Said he was learning framing and siding. Liked it more than he thought he would. Then Dad shifted in his seat and said, "I should have pushed back that night. At Lorraine's. I should have said something." I shook my head. We both froze. It happens. He gave a slow nod, like that one sentence lifted something off his shoulders. When we stood to leave, Mom pressed a folded piece of paper into my hand. Didn't say what it was. Just held my hand longer than she needed to. I waited until I was in the car to open it. Church bulletin. Plain, creased. Inside, she'd written, "Come home when you're ready." I drove back to Maple Ridge with the window cracked and the radio off. The quiet felt different. Not hollow. Just still. Like something that had been aching finally went quiet and let me breathe. Back at the shop, the corkboard near the office had a new card pinned to it. Brent Colson, Regional Partner Opportunity. Same font, different logo. His guy must have come in again. I didn't even take the card down. Just stuck it firmer with a dull thumbtack and went back to kneading a batch of dough that needed a firmer hand. The office came out of necessity. 2 rooms over a bike shop with squeaky floors and a faint smell of tire rubber in the walls. I brought in a cheap desk, a filing cabinet that leaned, and a chair I had no business being that comfortable in. First thing I did was hang a corkboard and pin up every note I'd written to myself over the past year. Second thing I did was open a business bank account under a new LLC. Then I called a broker. He showed me a list of downtown properties in rough shape, over-leveraged, under-rented, just hanging on. One name stopped me cold. King Street. Fancy brick building. Front windows trimmed in black with gold lettering. Upstairs sitting empty. Mortgage balance so deep it made my teeth hurt. Owner, Lorraine Mercer. The note was held by a regional bank I already did deposits with. Not personal, not emotional, just math on paper. The price was high, but not out of reach. I signed the purchase papers through the LLC. No fanfare, no flags, just a name no one recognized and a line in a file. We didn't gut it. We fixed it. One upstairs suite was still leased to Mercer & Co., carried over with the sale. Through closing, I inherited that short-term office lease on standard terms. Lorraine wasn't the landlord here anymore. She was my tenant, same as anyone else. I patched the roof, stripped the warped trim, and sanded the oak floors until the stain finally took. Brought in a local barber who'd been priced out of his last place, gave him a lease that let him sleep at night. Next door, a mother and daughter alteration shop moved in. Rent fair, terms simple. The older one cried when she signed. The younger one offered to hem my sleeves for free. I told her no need. She did it anyway. When tax season rolled around, Lorraine's office called the property line. "I'm calling on behalf of Mrs. Mercer," the assistant said. "She's contesting a late fee on her office suite lease that carried over post-sale." My manager replied, calm as ever. "We can place her on a standard payment plan if needed. We do that for everyone." Silence on the other end. Then a clipped, "Fine." I didn't need to see Lorraine's face to feel it. That slow, cold realization that the leash she'd once pulled me with was now snapped at both ends. It wasn't revenge. It was gravity. A month later, she walked into Hearth & Stone carrying a box wrapped in cloth with her initials on it. "Preserves," she said. "I've been perfecting them." I raised an eyebrow. "Since when?" She didn't answer. Just smiled like she was trying on shoes that didn't quite fit. We sat in the office behind the shop. She crossed her legs, folded her hands, and said, "I think I may have misjudged things back then. I was misled by assumptions." "Sure," I said. "That sounds about right." She waited, like I was supposed to let her off the hook. I didn't. I told her what she'd done still had a price, but that I wasn't the one collecting anymore. "I forgive you," I said, "but not for you. I do it because I need to live my life without you camped out in my head." She nodded, slow. Then I told her what I'd really brought her in for. "There's a trade school kitchen going into the King Street building," I said. "Opens next spring. Scholarship attached." Her lips parted like she was about to ask a question, but I didn't give her the space. "It'll be named after Clara." "Not you." She looked like someone had turned off the air in the room. Took her a second, but she recovered. "I'd like to donate," she said, smoothing her coat. "You can write the check to the fund, and all donor names get printed the same size. No exceptions." Another pause. "Fair enough." She left the preserves behind. I gave them to Ashley, who said they were too sweet. A week later, Brent took another swing. Filed a complaint with the zoning board over industrial odors affecting nearby tenants. The clerk called me personally. "You still baking?" she asked. "Last I checked." "Then keep doing what you're doing. He's full of it." That night, I locked up early and walked home slow. I still lived above the first shop, same tiny apartment with the window that stuck and the tile that never stayed clean. I pulled down the one mug I always used, black ceramic, chipped lip, solid handle, and washed it by hand. While I dried it, I thought about Dylan. 15, scared, hiding behind a sock drawer full of blame I'd carried for both of us. Then Dylan on my couch, whispering truth to the dark. I didn't tell anyone about the bank band, not even Ruby. Didn't plan to. What I carried back then had changed shape, but not weight. The difference now was that I knew what to do with it. Forgiveness wasn't about forgetting. It was about not letting someone else steer. And I was done handing over the wheel. That evening, Dylan texted, "Dad's shop after close, just us." I didn't ask why. I just drove. Dad's shop still smelled like oil and old radio. That scent you don't notice until it's gone. The walls were lined with tools that hadn't moved in years, and calendars from dealerships that didn't exist anymore. It was the kind of place where time stacks itself in neat piles if you let it. Dylan stood by the workbench, wiping his hands on a rag that looked like it had seen too many carburetors. His fingers were blackened from the day, cracked knuckles, oil in the creases. His hair was longer than Mom liked. His face looked older than it should have. He didn't say hi. He just set a small box on the bench, wrapped tight in brown paper, and kept his palm resting on top of it like he was holding something down. I've been carrying this for too long, he said. You probably knew. You always knew. I leaned against the old red tool chest and let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. I found the bank band in your drawer the night everything blew up, I said. Right behind your cards. I figured it out. I just didn't say anything. He swallowed hard, looked down at the floor, and nodded once. I took the money, he said. Not all of it. 300 and some change. I was 16. I was stupid. I thought maybe I could fix what felt broken. I didn't interrupt. He needed to say it all. There was this RC car in the pawn shop window, he said. Same kind you used to stare at when we were kids. The one with the red stripe and the little stupid antenna. You wanted it for 2 birthdays and never got it. He tapped the box twice with his fingers. I wanted to hand it to you like, here, big man, something just for you for once. Then I panicked. I put the money back sloppy. Lorraine started counting. You know the rest. He slid the box toward me. I found the exact model last month. Same brand, same paint. I sold a set of rims I didn't need just to get it. I didn't say a word. Just picked it up, peeled the paper back slow. The car inside was clean, almost too clean, like the past had been sealed in plastic and kept on ice until now. My chest went hot. Not from anger. Not even relief. It felt like something tight inside me finally let go after holding on too long. I'm sorry, he said, for being a coward, for letting you walk out and not stopping it, for letting Mom put it all on you, for letting Dad stay quiet. I did that. I set the car down, reached out, and put my hand on his shoulder. I loved you then, Dylan, I said. I love you now. That's why I took it. That's what being the big brother meant to me. You were a kid. He shook his head. You were a kid too. We stood there like that, just the two of us in a room full of bolts, grease, and memories that didn't smell so sharp anymore. You don't owe me this car, I said. You don't owe me an apology. Just keep being the man you've been turning into. That's enough. He wiped his face with the back of his wrist and let out a short laugh. You always talk like a guy who gets up before dawn. I smirked. Habits hard to break. Then I told him the truth. I told him I'd kept the whole family together in my head for years by believing this moment would happen. Just us. No noise. No one watching. Just truth. He nodded, steady now. I'll tell Mom and Dad. They should hear it from me. It's not yours to carry anymore. I slid the car back in the box and closed the lid. I'm putting it on the shelf in my office, right where I can see it when the days get loud. Deal, he said. We hugged like brothers who knew exactly what it had cost to earn that word, and what it was still worth. Would you have taken the fall to protect your little brother? Drop your answer in the comments and let us know. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.